Question 4. How will institutions be penalized if they do not meet the accreditation or quality of standards of the legislation? If a higher education institution fails to meet the required accreditation or quality standards, the following penalties apply. 1. Loss of accreditation and degree granting authority. If an institution does not renew its accreditation after 6 years, it loses the right to issue accredited diplomas, titles, and degrees. The institution must report this immediately to the Inspectorate of Education. 2. A temporary recovery period. If an accreditation renewal is denied, the institution has 2 years to regain accreditation while still being able to issue degrees. 3. Student protection measures. If accreditation is permanently lost, students must be offered the opportunity to complete their studies at another accredited institution. And finally, financial and administrative sanctions. So the Ministry of Education may suspend or withdraw public funding for non-compliant institutions. Institutions that commit fraud in accreditation processes may face legal and financial penalties. Question 5. What is the timeline for the implementation of the law and how will it be enforced to ensure compliance? The Ministry is in the process of concluding a roadmap for implementation and drafting national decrees to establish accreditation and funding regulations with the ambition of the law coming into force by the 2026-2027 academic year. As indicated earlier, compliance will be enforced through the following means. The Inspector of Education will conduct regular evaluations to ensure compliance with accreditation and operational requirements. The Minister of ECYS reviews institutions' financial accountability and may suspend or adjust funding based on compliance. And institutions that fail to meet conditions risk withdrawal of accreditation and/or public funding. Moving on to questions from MP Kotai. Accreditation bodies, will this include NVAO, who are used by Curacao and Aruba? Will this be acceptable here as well? The NVAO only accredits institutions in the Netherlands and Flanders. Institutions in the Dutch Caribbean may only receive recognition from the NVAO. We must understand the difference between the two. So accreditation ensures that institutions and courses meet rigorous quality standards, fostering international credibility, student mobility, and employer confidence in graduates. Recognition, on the other hand, is a statement from the NVAO that the quality of the educational program meets NVAO quality standards. Prioritizing accreditation is essential for strengthening our higher education sector and ensuring long-term academic and professional opportunities for students. Therefore, the focus of the accreditation framework was on establishing a preliminary list of accreditation agencies and a proposed framework for accreditation. So through you, Madam Chair Lady, to the MP, no, the NVAO is not included amongst the list of accreditation bodies identified in the framework because it can only provide our higher education programs with recognition. As I mentioned previously, however, the process of establishing this preliminary list in a national decree is ongoing and will be concluded after the law for higher education is established.
I have just one that I did not ask in the first round, which is related to the way that we calculate the coverage that we do give, because when we're in our preparation for this meeting, obviously we're all dealing with the same stakeholders in terms of trying to get an understanding of the concerns of our existing institutions and making sure that, let's say, the viability or the continuation of those institutions will happen while respecting the fact that they are indeed semi-private or based on a private endowment. So it's just to get an overall understanding. Then this is the discussion that we were having in terms of why the same level of consideration for the calculation of coverage and support is basically the same thing for the lagere schools, the secondary education, as it is now with the higher education. So just to explain, please, why it's the same thing being held, or if that's something that came under review to be considered where it's not based on the number of students, but it's based on maybe operational costs. Just to further clarify that. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
How it started is important for me. From in the Netherlands, I already realized that the subsidy for the school would be based on how much students graduate. That's what I understood when I was there. I see now in the law here it is somewhat different. So I'd like to know how that came about and where it is today and where we're going after. Because I do agree with MP De Weaver. If a school has 20 students, it still needs the same amount of teachers, educators to cover all the classes. So the operation cost doesn't make much of a difference when it comes to the operation cost of the school.
regarding calculating the coverage, why the same level of consideration for the calculation and support in VO/FO and higher education? So is it based on number of students or operational cost? So the mechanism applied to the formula funding includes three key components with a focus on financial sustainability. These components include, one, the fixed costs of the institution being accounted for based on historic costs. Two, the variable costs of the institution are taken into account along with the number of students enrolled. And three, a component based on contract funding that allows for growth based on innovative activities, institutional goals, national priorities, including the possibility for private and public partnerships based on contract funding. The three components together appeal to a mechanism that allows for institutional sustainability, which I believe should be the goal for any institution. The ministry seeks to ensure that the institutions can appeal to all three components and ensure growth of their establishments. The latter component, contract funding, does require for adequate strategic planning, cooperation, and substantiation between the ministry and the institutions in question. And MP La Cruz also asked about the subsidy based on students, how did this come about, where is it today, and where are we going after. So the ministry developed the higher education funding model, which has enabled annual funding of USM as of 2020-2021 to be geared towards the sustainable funding of the institution through the funding of personnel and operation costs, taking into account the actual cost of USM. The funding model for higher education is distinctly different from the funding provided via the National Decree for the Funding of Education, which is used to fund primary, secondary, and advanced vocational education. Although the number of students in accredited programs will be a component of the manner in which funding is calculated, the actual personnel and operational costs of the institution is the most significant component of the funding calculation. As indicated in the response to MP De Wever, the funding model for higher education is based on a three-pillar system, by which Pillar 1 and 2 are geared at covering the fixed and variable costs of the institution. The objective of this type of lump sum funding is to ensure the financial sustainability of the funded higher education institution and to fund it in such a way that tuition or other costs do not become a barrier to access for citizens. In addition to the lump sum funding, Pillar 3 allows for contract funding, which enables the government to have a means of funding that allows for further investment towards growth, program development, research and development, and public-private partnerships. That brings me to the end of my questions received in round 2, Madam Chair Lady, and if I may, just as closing remarks to you, the members of Parliament and the general public, this law has been some time coming. In fact, it is a law that should have been considered and established before the existence of even AUC and USM, because to handle such things after the establishment of an institution, private or public, is kind of putting the cart before the horse. Of course, I was not alive when these institutions came into being. But in reflecting on the past, we can identify the way forward, and that is what the ministry is now aiming to do. And the way forward will be uncomfortable at times because there are some difficult decisions and tough realities to face when it comes to the realm of education. However, that is the nature of evolution, and it's my sincerest hope that the accessibility and level of higher education will improve for St. Martin once this law, hopefully, once this law is adopted.
So we will vote on Articles 1 through 135. The intitulé, the title, the considerants, consideration, the draft in its entirety, including the memorandum of modification as registered on the IS number 049 of the year 24-25. Does any member require or request voting by roll call? Hoofdelijke stemming. Silence in the place, that means that no one is requesting. And that being the case, without hoofdelijke stemming, the draft law is accepted unanimously. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, Minister and support staff, according to Article 88, subsection 1 of the Constitution of St. Martin, Parliament shall now notify the government that Parliament has approved this draft in its public meeting of today, Thursday, April the 3rd, 2025. At this time, I want to thank the members of Parliament. You are part of what I consider a historic decision, considering also what the minister said earlier about how long a draft national ordinance on higher education has been pending. So congratulations to the minister and her ministry. And again, I wish to express our thanks to the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport and all here today, as well as in the background, for providing the necessary information.
The future model under the SMGA will replace the physical on-site supervision with technology-driven oversight, offering real-time digital monitoring of casino operation and financial flow, automated reporting and analytics allowing for early detections of suspicious activities, centralized regulatory control, making it possible to cover more ground and with fewer resources, a shift in staff responsibilities from passive observations to active data analysis, auditing, and enforcement. And this modern approach aligns St. Martin with international best practices and prepare the jurisdiction for more effective, scalable, and transparent gaming regulation. In preparation for the SMGA, existing staff may be retrained to take on new roles within the authority where appropriate, and some functions may be phased out, and affected personnel could be reassigned based on their qualifications and evolving needs in the organization. Retraining will be done, and the transition plan will be guided by capacity needs, skill alignment, and strategic objectives of the new regulatory model. Is there a system to track local visitation to the casinos? No, there is currently no formal system in place to track the visitation of local residential to the casinos. However, this gap has been acknowledged and is being addressed in the draft legislation, which includes provisions by digital identity, verifications, and visitation tracking mechanism to support responsible gambling. MP Linden says he understands that desktops and tablets were given to the department. Please clarify what they were being used for. Only tablets were provided, and these were issued as part of the pilot project aimed to improving the efficiency and accuracy of data collection by casino controllers. The primary goal of the pilot project was to eliminate paper-based reporting by shifting to digital entry directly in the field, and support the development of the centralized digital database, which is critical for making the best use of data collected, enabling a real-time monitoring, trend analysis, and evidence-based on decision-making. It is important to know that without a centralized system, the advantages of data collection remain limited. The database will serve as a backbone for modern and data-driven regulatory oversight. In parallel, the ministry is in its early stages of integrating both the Department of Economic Licenses and Inspectorate into a shared digital platform. This broader effort will enhance coordination, improve efficiency, and establish a unified approach to oversight and service delivery. Desktops were not provided as part of these initiatives, and no additional hardware beyond the tablets was distributed. What is the distinction between standalone casinos and casinos located at hotels? Standalone casinos is a casino that is not linked to a hotel. This can include casinos that are located on the hotel property but belong to another entity that other than the hotel. Such an example was Princess Casino before it moved to Sunset Building. A hotel-based casino is a casino that is attached to a hotel with at least 200 rooms. In the past, a casino that belonged to another entity than a hotel with at least 200 rooms were included as a hotel-based casino once the two entities had agreement that the casino could operate on the hotel as hotel-based. This was the case with Dunes Casino and Caravanserai. In addition, as per the updated casino policy, if a hotel is expanding to meet the requirements, the hotel-based hotel license could be granted if financing is secured and construction has begun, and or at least 65% of the required 200 rooms are completed and the property is open, and the remaining 35% of the rooms must be completed within 2 years. Next questions posed by MP Artwell Arian. MP Artwell Arian asked 19 questions, and his lines of questioning focused on clarifying moratorium, license procedures, policy enforcement. He also inquired about eligibility and compliance of casino entities with hotel rooms requirement, and requested supporting document and data verification and legislation updates. First question. There is a moratorium for casinos, and given the location in Simpson Bay, but there was also a transfer of a standalone to another location. To clarify, once again, the casino operating on the hotel premises had been operating as a standalone casino. Because at the time of the issuance, the hotel had less than 200 rooms. The entity requested a change of address from its location on Union Road to Welfare Road, for which the change of address license was approved and issued. In other words, the existing casino license was amended to reflect the new address. Was there a calm decision on giving out the casino license? If the MP's questions refer to the same casino license, then no. There was no calm decision regarding the issuance of an amendment to the existing casino license in Simpson Bay. Requests for the transfers can be processed by the Minister of TIAC. To be clear, no new standalone casino license was issued. What occurred was the relocation of an existing standalone casino from its previous location on a hotel property to a new address, independent of the hotel.
Just for some clarity, Minister, you said that the decision was based on a draft policy to come, whereas if you have 200 rooms, you'll be able to qualify. I'll be clear on the draft policy to come, because in the current policy, it doesn't state that. So I'll be clear if you're referring to the draft policy or the current policy.
If a hotel is expanding to meet this requirement, the hotel-based casino license could be granted if financing is secured and construction has begun, and or at least 65% of the required 200 rooms are completed and the property is open, and the remaining 35% of the room must be completed within 2 years. And that's based on the 2011 update. Okay. So the third question posed by MP, yes?
The casino policy was established in 1996. The amendment to the casino policy was in 2011, and which deemed that 65% of the rooms had to be built completion. My question is, who changed the policy from the initial 20 to allowing 65% to be built, and who then changed it, saying that you have 2 years to complete?
If my memory serves me correct, the first minister of TIAD between 2010 to 2012 was your person, MP Franklin Myers, as Minister of TIAD, the then Minister of TIAD, made the change.
Minister?
Yes.
Even
Sorry,
those,
through you, Madam Chair Lady.
especially in the public meeting. Hold on just a
Yes,
moment.
through
So we're going to have, I see that MP Myers, you're requesting the floor for interruption. Yes. Here.
Made which change? Because there were 2 changes.
There was one change? There was, according to my, there was one update, and that was done in 2011 by, okay, one clarification. Okay, so next question. Is there a moratorium? Yes, there's currently a moratorium on the issuance of stand-alone casino licenses. How many casinos were with operational licenses? There are currently 15 operational casino licenses issued. How many moratoriums do we have in total? There are currently 7 moratoriums in place. What is the procedure to lift a moratorium? The procedure to lift a moratorium takes place via an advice to the Minister for approval. Reference advice is supported and motivated with material following review of, for instance, the supply and demand dynamics, or the economic and social implications or dynamics, other changes, influence, or developments of the applicable sector. The moratorium, can sometimes also be regulated by policy or based on established caps or maximums established to prevent or encourage development, saturation, and disturbance from or in an applicable sector. Once approved, the decision is published.
It's time for a new brand that is as bold, vibrant, and colorful as the island of St. Martin, with colors drawn from our diversity, cultural heritage, and nature. Our breathtaking beaches, waters, and sun, the majestic brown pelican, our national symbol, the radiant yellow sage, our national flower, the historic border monument signifying the Dutch and French sides, our exciting cruise, yachting, and boating ports, renowned Maho Beach and St. Martin Airport, the hub to the Caribbean. All these parts come together to create the shape of the island of St. Martin. More than a logo. It's a new brand that engages, excites, and will inspire travelers to book. It's time to tell the St. Martin story, to reintroduce travelers to St. Martin, to honor our past, to embrace our present, and shape our future. Our culture and diversity, Dutch and French sides, unrivaled cuisine, twice the nightlife, entertainment, and shopping, cruises, boating, and yachting, twice the adventure, exploration, and relaxation, splendid and scenic accommodations, Pinel, Tentamar, and island hopping in the Caribbean. Whatever your taste, St. Martin has more. Experience twice the Caribbean. St. Martin.
As a result, the way it went with trying to accommodate the notes of amendment from government and the amendments from parliament, the final text cannot be established in the way we have been using the templates for the budget 2025. Correspondence has been sent from government to parliament and, of course, from the parliament back to government to find a solution for this technicality. Based on the correspondence, it is proposed to apply a novel-like legislative technique, which is common in the Netherlands but not in St. Martin. This novel concept is actually a method of working because in the Netherlands they have the first chamber and the second chamber. As you know, they treat the budget in the second chamber. The second chamber sends it to the first chamber for them to give their opinion and feedback on. And if there are any changes, then they call it the novel that comes back from the first chamber back to the second chamber. In St. Martin, we do not have a first chamber, but the concept, and that's why I called it a novel legislative-like technique, that we say, okay, we have made some amendments or proposal for amendments that have been approved in Parliament. We just have to adjust them in the budget. And the fact that we had encountered some technicalities, some technical issues in trying to accommodate the amendments from the side of government and parliament. We had some challenges with that, and that is the reason now that we have to see how we're going to solve that problem. For St. Martin, it is proposed to correct solely the notes of amendment from government, as I said, and the amendments from parliament by means of a national ordinance. That I think should happen, that we will have to have an extra national ordinance, after which the final text, what they call in Dutch the eindtekst, can be established on the basis on the one side of the initial national ordinance budget, and on the other side the corrective national ordinance budget of 2025, which solely amends the notes of amendment of government and the amendments of parliament. So that national ordinance that we are going to propose has solely to do with the amendments of the notes of amendments from government and the amendments of parliament. As soon as the final text has been established on the base of the approach of how I have explained it, then we will then present it back to the CFT, and then we will also present it to legal affairs first, by the way, not on the to CFT, but first to legal affairs. Legal affairs is now busy with it to see how we can come to the understanding for this new additional landsverordening, and then on the base of this approved landsverordening of the budget 2025, with next to that the second landsverordening for the amended version. In that way, simultaneously, those two landsverordeningen can go into practice. Regardless the outcome, the standard legislative trajectory applies, meaning advice from first the Legal Affairs, the CFT, the Council of Advice, and of course at the end to be presented to Parliament. I have the strong belief that we will get through. We have a budget 2025 approved by Parliament. It's in the work out of the technicalities of the proposed notes of amendments on the side of government and the amendments on the side of Parliament. We accounted some technical issues to actually incorporate those amendments into the already approved budget 2025. And I have the strong belief that we will get through, although it's a little complicated to actually correct this problem. I think soon we will be so far to have a budget 25 that government of St. Martin can work with. Concerning now the mission to the Netherlands that I had from the 20th of March until the 30th, I had a few planned official meetings in the Netherlands. It was a very successful mission for country St. Martin. First of all, I had a meeting with the cabinet and the minister plenipotentiary in Den Haag, being the representation in the name of Mrs. Gracita Arendel. We had an extreme discussion on which we discussed the database that the St. Martin House, under supervision of Mrs. Gracita Arendel, is working on a database for us to have a good overview of the students that are studying at this particular moment in the Netherlands. I think it's important realizing the necessities of professionals in St. Martin that we actually register all the students that are actively busy in the Netherlands and especially keep track of their progress with their studies and especially keep a warm relationship with them for at the end when they are ready with their studies for them to be able to come back and help their country. Further, another challenge that a lot of students are encountering is, of course, the housing issue, and we are trying in all ways to be in contact with, on national level, what they call in the Netherlands, the woonverenigingen, for us to see which of the institutions can assist us with providing us with accommodation for housing for our students every year. Further, we would like also to have a database to have a good overview about the diaspora of those from St. Martin in the Netherlands. And that is also a point that the St. Martin House is working on. And of course, we discussed a few details about improving the communication for the sake of efficiency, for the sake of actually having more success in our Kingdom Council of Ministers meetings. So it was a very successful meeting with the Minister Plenipotentiary and the Cabinet of the Minister Plenipotentiary in Den Haag. We also had a meeting with the VNG. The VNG is the Vereniging Nederlandse Gemeentes, and we made use of that opportunity to see if they can assist us with recruitment of personnel, human resources, human capital, in a way for us to increase our professional treasury for our country. As you know, and I said it already, we have a big challenge with filling in our professional treasury for our country. I also had a meeting with the management of the Hoge Hotelschool in Den Haag. That is a very prestigious educational institution in the Netherlands, and they are preparing students, professionals on a high level to be very efficient and well informed once they are finalizing their study for them to work in the hospitality sector, and that is also what we need in this country. I even proposed to them, and we are working on that to see if we can get a working relationship with USM, in which the Hogeschool of Den Haag can have a pied-à-terre in Sint Maarten, not only to educate our students, but also giving students coming from the Netherlands or internationally from other countries, for them, for example, to do part of their education here. In this way, it helps both countries and the world. We will get a lot of students here. Perhaps some will be fascinated with St. Martin and will decide to stay, helping us with our hospitality sector in St. Martin, and at the end having more local, on a professional level, serving the tourism sector of country St. Martin.